When reporters have asked Mitt Romney about running for president, his answer again and again has been the same.
I have nothing to add about my own. I'm not running, not planning on running, and I'm not going to add to the story beyond that.
So, you're not saying you're done?
What I'm saying is I'm not running. I'm not planning on running. That's all I got for you, Chris. No more than that.
But now the Wall Street Journal reports that the two-time candidate told a meeting of donors Friday that he's considering another White House bid in 2016, according to those present. And Politico quotes a source who recalls Romney saying, "Everybody in here can go tell your friends that I'm considering a run." Joining us now, Christina Bellantoni, editor-in-chief at Roll Call, and Lauren Fox, who covers the Hill for National Journal. Christina, the press doesn't seem to want to take no from Mitt Romney for an answer from Mitt Romney. Is this the latest example of just kind of trying to drum up a Romney candidacy?
It is an easy story for the press to do. We often talk about this on your show because you've got all of this footage, not just from his 2012 failed presidential bid against President Obama, but also his failed primary bid in 2008. And so there are ways to just get back into the story. And the press loves tension and big personalities. I mean, the Washington Post story on the front page this morning by Phil Rucker and Robert Costa, it's really well written, very interesting, but it gets at all of this drama between the Bush family and the Romney family legacies going back 50 years. And this is something that the media can easily focus on. You've got all the sound bites, you've got the drama, you've got the tension. It's a great story.
Well, with Jeb Bush very clearly getting into the race, Lauren, and Mitt just making some comments behind closed doors, is there any sense that you have that he may just be trying to get his name out there?
Well, it certainly will make a difference, though, heading into the 2016 election. I mean, already folks up in New Hampshire are saying, well, this might put a freeze on hiring for a couple of weeks while we really get a sense of whether or not Mitt Romney just, made an off-the-cuff statement, or whether or not he's really...
I want your take on how seriously, right now, based on what we know, the media should be taking these rumblings.
Well, if he's going to make an announcement about running for president, he's going to tell donors before he tells the press, perhaps.
Or he's going to tell donors to tell the press.
Right. I mean, this could be Mitt Romney just wanting to stay relevant. Certainly we saw in 2014 that was part of his strategy. He was in a lot of these Chamber of Commerce ads, helping folks who are running for Congress. So I think Mitt Romney definitely wants to stay relevant.
So no sooner did these organizations going nuts over this than Time Magazine runs a piece saying top advisors, these would be political advisors, discount the possibility of him actually mounting a campaign as opposed to talking about mounting a campaign.
But you do have to take him seriously. I mean, this is someone who would be able to build up an infrastructure fairly quickly. I mean, yes, there's the question of how many advisors have already gone on to work for others, but he could, if he wanted to run, he could be there. And the Republican Party has tended to do this. So, yes, I think the media should take it seriously.
It's not that I don't take Mitt Romney seriously, although it's interesting. The press didn't particularly like Romney in 2012, didn't particularly give him great treatment, and seems to be rooting for him to run. And so you have these headlines today. You mentioned Washington Post, Politico, Mitt, Jeb, ready to rumble.
Well, I mean, I think that it's an interesting news story. It's a fun news story. And unlike 2012, when, Mitt Romney was one of the only really establishment candidates late in the race, I think the press is hungry for a story where they get to put more and more conservative establishment candidates up against each other. And obviously, Bush and a guy who's run twice already for president is a really good example of this.
Especially if you're going to have donors fighting it out.
Yeah, that's a great story.
It's a juicy story, but I'm going to be skeptical about whether he actually gets in. All right, this week, John Boehner easily reelected as House Speaker, but you had a lot of media attention on what was called a coup attempt or a mutiny because 25 Republicans ended up voting against him. Was that hyped for the sheer drama of it?
I will defend this coverage. Obviously, Roll Call does quite a bit of it. Congress is our business, but you had way more Republicans voting against Boehner than ever before. He had a certain number of dissidents. I believe it was 12 or 13 in his last run for Speaker. And so you had a bigger effort. You had Republicans that gave him a heads up saying, look, I'm from deeply red districts, and if I don't vote against you, I'm going to get a primary. And then you saw him punish people. I mean, this is actually a story about power dynamics on Capitol Hill.
Right, but at the same time, you will quickly agree that he was never seriously threatened.
No, he wasn't ever seriously threatened. And the way that we covered it was always looking at there are insurgents who are agitating to get rid of him. They are not going to be successful, but here's how they're trying to do it. Here's what they're working on, and here's what they like to see him
Republicans often say the left-leaning media, in their view, exaggerate the party's divisions into a civil war. The Boehner battle was a good opportunity for this.
Right, certainly. And, one thing that I thought was interesting about the coverage is it was a serious number of people, but it was never a serious effort. I mean, I talked to Scott Ridgell, who's a congressman from Virginia. He's more of an establishment congressman. He said, look, I didn't even know that we were actually going to run a serious candidate against him, like Daniel Webster. He said, I decided to change my vote against
it was kind of Keystone
Boehner last minute.
I mean, Congressman Louis Gohmert announced he's getting into the race on Fox and Friends. He got 3 votes.
Right. And Ted, people are voting for themselves on the floor. I mean, if there was a real serious effort, it would have been more organized than just the morning of or a few days before.
And there was a lot of consternation within the Democratic Party as well, and we've covered that extensively, the arguments against Pelosi and the tension there. Right.
Well, I think the underlying tensions is a better story than the pretense that Boehner might have lost his job, but now he's got to do the job. Christina Valentoni, Lauren Fox, thanks very much for stopping by.